Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sonia, a self-taught designer, hand letterer, and illustrator. In today's video, I want to show you how you can create this simple looking podcast icon using Adobe Illustrator. This is for complete beginners, and I know how it could be intimidating and scary at first when you open the Illustrator, so I want to divide this video into two parts. So in part one, I will show you how to create like a mic shape like this and some of the functions that I use to create this mic stand. And on the second video, I will show you how to create all these lines, such as the sound effect and the lines on the mic, and also how you can easily change colors. If this is something that interests you, keep on watching. First, so open up Adobe Illustrator, and then we're gonna create a new file. So just go ahead and say create new, click on that. And then the new document screen will pop up here. Really, it doesn't matter how big your canvas size is, just because Illustrator is a vector form. All that means is whether you size it big or size it small, the quality won't change. So I'm just gonna start out at 1000 pixel by 1000 pixel. I'm gonna just call it podcast icon. And just go ahead and create, and then you will have a new canvas. So typically when I go about creating an icon, I bring my sketch in so I could use that as a guideline. So in order to do that, just go ahead and go to File, and then you're gonna go to Place, and then you're just gonna go ahead and find your sketch. So in my case, I have it in my desktop, and go ahead and place it. Okay, so now we have the sketch in. So a few things you want to do here is, number one, when we do create an icon, we want to create it in a separate layer and not on the same layer as a sketch. So first, we're going to go to the layers panel. It's going to be down here. If you don't see that, you could always go to Windows and then look up for a layers panel and it'll pop up. So right now, this is going to be my sketch layer. So if you double click on that name, you could change the name. So I'm going to just call it a sketch. And then another thing you can do is you can hold it and then you could lock it. So if you click on this empty box here, you could lock. But before I do that, I want to do one more thing. So I want to lower down the opacity of the sketch so that if I do create or draw on top of it, this is not too visible. So double click, not on the wording here, because if you double click here, it's going to change the name. But if you double click on the outside, it's going to open up a layer option. So all you need to focus here is go to here, dim images to, and then you could control the opacity that way. So in my case, I'll just go 30% and click OK. And now the sketch itself is dimmed, so it's easy for you to draw on top of that. So, and then I'm going to go ahead and lock that layer. So whatever, I can't really do anything there. I'm going to add another layer where we're going to actually work on creating an icon. So we're going to go ahead and click on this, which is create new layer down here. And then that's going to give you a new layer. Again, if you double click on the wording, you can change the name. I'm going to call it a podcast icon. And then we can go ahead and start drawing there. So we're ready to create. So the first thing we're gonna do is create this shape of the mic. So how I'm gonna go ahead and do that is we're gonna go over here. So this is a rectangle tool. If you put your mouse pointer there, if you click on it and hold it down, it will give you different options. So we're gonna use what's called a rounded rectangle tool. And then you can draw it like this. So a few things that you noticed. At any time, if you want to get out of the function that you're using, you just click a selection tool, or you could use a shortcut V, just letter V. So the first thing you notice is the inside is colored and the outside is the black outline. So I want just the outline and not the fill color in there. So if you go down here, you will see two options here. So this one is a fill color, so that's white, that's what it's showing. And then if you click this one, this is the stroke, and this is a stroke color. So right now, I don't want to fill inside, I just want the stroke. So you want to click on that option first, so the fill is on top of the stroke. And then from there, you could select this one, which says none. So that means there's nothing in there. So you have to select it first, obviously, before you do that. So you select it, and right now this is telling me the fill is white and the outline is black. Make sure the fill is on top of the outline because that means you're selecting that option there. And then you click on none, then now we only have an outline. That's one thing. Another thing is for the outline, I want it to be thicker than this. So there's few ways you could change the stroke. If you come up here, there's an option where you could increase the stroke that way. You could either go up, or you could type it in, or another way is you could go on this side and change the stroke. If you don't see it there, again, you just go to the window panel and then there's gonna be an option for stroke and you could change it that way too. Okay, so that's one. So I'm gonna maybe change this to about 12 point. I want it thick like this. But another thing is I have to make the corners more rounded. So I'm using Adobe CC, and if you do have the most recent version of the CC, you have this option. You select, you click on the shape, and you would see these circle icons in the corner. So you just grab one, and then if you click on it and hold it down and you pull it in, it will automatically bring all the four corners for you. So that's one way of doing that. I want to make it a little bit more rounder than that. Maybe about this looks good to me. Okay, like that. But let's say you don't have Adobe CC, there's also another way to do that. So I'm going to delete. If you go back to over here where the rounded rectangle tool is, so again, you press it down and then you select on the rounded rectangle tool. And instead of drawing, if you double click on the screen, it will give you a different options. And you could change the corner radius that way. Now, it might take few tries to get it right, but that's one way, another way, I mean, to do it. So you can try. So 15 seems little too. So I'm just gonna, let's say 100. It looks about right. And then you could go ahead and do it that way. Another thing, if you want to resize your shapes, you could put your mouse on this corner in this 4 white corners, and then you could control it like this. So you could change the size to your liking. Another quick shortcut to change everything together at the same time, instead of just doing one side, you could do that by holding down onto Shift and Alt Option, then that will change all 4 sides together. Just a little shortcut. Okay, now for me, since I can go ahead and round the corners, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to draw it here. Again, if you want to change any of the width or height, you could go ahead and use either this one for this corner. If you want to change the height, then you could put the cursor right in the middle dot here, and that will change that. Same thing for left and right, the width, you could do that. If you want to do both at the same time, you could hold on to Alt Option and it will move both ways, this way, or again, you're doing this, but you're holding down onto Alt Option, then you will move both. But as I mentioned before, if you want to move all 4 at the same time, then you can click on Shift and Alt Option, then that will move everything at the same time instead of just one side. Okay, so I'm just gonna resize this really quick. Okay, so I have the mic shape. So that step is done. The second step I'm gonna show you how to do is the mic stand. And in order to do that, I'm gonna introduce you to what is called a pathfinder. So pathfinder, you could find it down here. This is the option. If you don't see it there, you could always go to the windows and click on pathfinder. So the thing here is, so before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and create some shapes. I'm gonna use a ellipse tool for that. And if you go back to where the rounded rectangle tool was, again, just go there, click and hold on it, and there's different options, and you can go ahead and select ellipse tool. I'm gonna select that, and then you can create a circle this way, like this. But I wanna create a perfect circle. In order to do that, you do the same thing, except that now you're gonna hold on to Shift and Alt Option at the same time. So you would notice, so look at the cursor carefully, and if I click on Shift and Alt Option at the same time, the cursor will change. It will give that circle look. See that? So that means it's going to create a perfect circle. So now if you draw, it'll be the exact perfect circle. So that's what I want. And I'm going to go ahead and put it around where this mic stand is going to be. I want it to have a perfect circle there. So I'm going to put it right there. Okay, so I got that. I also want a perfect circle for this. So I'm going to do the same thing. Shift and hold down Alt Option at the same time. Oh, I got to click on the ellipse tool first. So select the ellipse tool, Shift and Alt Option, hold down at the same time, and I'm going to create a perfect circle that way. And I want the circle to be around here. Now, if you notice, this circle here is an outline. That's fine. But I want this to be a solid, right? So I will show you how I use a pathfinder for this one first, and then we're going to do the exact same thing on this one. So first of all, I want this to be just solid and not no outline. And I've showed you here where we could do that. Remember how this shows the fill and this shows the outline? I just want to simply switch it. I want to have nothing on the fill and nothing on the stroke and then just the fill. You could easily switch that by clicking on this, swap fill and stroke. And then there you go. You could possibly go ahead and select the fill, make it into fill, and then go to the stroke and get rid of the stroke that way. But the easiest way is to just swap it. So I have done that, but I don't need the full circle. I just need the top part of the circle. So I'm just going to cut this part off. And again, I'll use Pathfinder doing that. So first thing I want to do is I want to draw like a rectangle on top of it. So I go back to my ellipse tool, press it down, and there is what's called a rectangle tool. So select that, and then I'm just going to go ahead and draw a rectangle. So the rectangle, you're going to place it so that, think about how much of the circle you want. So for me, I just want this much right now, and then I'm going to cover the rest with this rectangle. And it will all make sense once I use the Pathfinder, but that's what you want to do first. So you have the circle, and on top of the circle, you have this rectangle, and then you're going to place it so that depending on how much of the circle you want. So in my case, I just want to leave this and nothing else, right? So now I have a circle, and on top of it, I have a rectangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select 2. And this only works if the rectangle is on top of the circle. Typically, the order of how you create the shape. So in other words, if I created the circle first and then I created the rectangle, then rectangle should be on top. But in any case, if that's not the case, the quickest way to do is you just select the rectangle, you hold on to Control and then click, and there's a different options, and there's something called arrange, and you just make sure you bring that to the front. Then you know for sure that rectangle is on top of the circle. Now, once you have done that, we're going to select both the circle and the rectangle at the same time. In order to do that, you click on the circle, you hold on to Shift, and then you click onto rectangle. And then we go to the Pathfinder now. So if I go to the Pathfinder, there are several options. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just going to show you the one that we need to use, and that is called minus front. It's the second one here. And see what happens when I click on it. It's basically going to get rid of everything that's on the front. So if I click on it, now this is the circle that I want. So what has happened is whatever was on the front, which is the rectangle, and anything that's touching that rectangle has gone away as well. So the easiest way that I like to think of it is kind of like papers where it's overlapping. So I have a circle and that overlaps with the rectangle paper. And if I do select this minus front, anything from that rectangle to anything that's touching or overlapping that rectangle will go away as well. So I have created this shape that I want, which is perfect for this mic stand. So sometimes I like to use this option to create a shape, kind of like cutting paper idea. We will use this exact same technique on this top of the mic stand as well. So again, we have this rectangle, and another one thing is The only way for this to make it work, and the reason I think of it as a paper, is because it has to be just fill and not an outline. So again, I have to change this to a solid, just like a piece of paper. So again, if you go here, you can easily swap that, right? So we want the fill to be just a solid, like a paper, and then no outline. So if I swap, now it's gonna be just the fill. Same thing, I wanna cut it off so I only have this part of the circle left. So same thing that we just did. I'm just gonna go to the rectangle tool, select that, create a rectangle on top. Again, the way for this to work, the rectangle has to be on top of the circle. Again, if you just wanna make sure that is the case, just click on Control, hold down Control, click on it, and then you have an option to arrange and make sure you bring that to the front. Once you have done that, you select both by Shift hold and grab both, and then use the same thing. So you just do minus front, and again, the rectangle gone away. All the circle or anything that's touching the rectangle has gone away as well. So I have this. The only thing I need for this one now is to be an outline. I don't want this to be a solid. This one is fine. That's what I wanted to begin with. Now this one, I want it to be an outline. You just have to swap it back. Again, I don't want to be a fill anymore. I just want to be an outline. You swap it. Couple things. The thickness is off now. So in order to change the thickness, I have showed you, you could go to the stroke, you could increase it, you could type it in. There's another quick way I want to show you. If you want to have the same thickness as any other thing in the same canvas or in the same artwork, so everything is consistent, yes, you could figure out what thickness is this and then match it. But the easiest way to do that is you select the one that you want to change the thickness and then click on letter I. That'll bring you the eyedropper tool. It's right here, eyedropper tool. If you don't see it, it's right there. And then if you click on that thickness, it'll match exactly the same thickness as the other one. So that just is a really quick shortcut, makes the job so much easier and save a lot more time. So now I know for sure the thickness of this one equals to the thickness of the mic. So we solved that problem. Another thing is I don't want this line. So we're just gonna cut that off. So you click on this, and then the cut option, short one is letter C. If you don't, you can also find it here. If you click down here, if it's like this, that's erase. You just hold, click and hold down, then there's other option for scissors tool. So all we're gonna really do is just cut that dot right there, here and here. And then you just select that line and delete. And now we have it there. Now, some people might ask, why don't we just create a circle and just cut it? Why did we have to go through that pathfinder? Well, yes, you could possibly just create a circle and cut on the left and cut on the right. Now, the reason I like to use that function is because wherever I'm cutting on the left side, I want it to be exactly the same on the right side. Another way you could do it is, yes, have a ruler and then cut, but I just find this much easier for me. So I like to use the pathfinder in order to do that, just minus front. And I know for sure if I cut this one and this one, it will be exactly at the same point. Okay, so we're almost there. All I need to do is just draw this line here. So we're gonna use what's called a line segment. All it does is just draw lines. It is over here, right here. If you click on that or hold down, if you don't see it, that'll be the line segment tool. You go there, and then we're gonna just draw a line. Now, if you do draw, it's not gonna be perfectly a straight line or 90-degree line. And in order to do that, all you need to do is, before you draw it down, you hold down onto shift and then you draw it, then you will always draw a perfectly 90-degree line. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But make sure you hold down onto shift, and then we have a line. Oh, that's not the line we're gonna create. Over here, down here. Okay, so for now we have the mic, we have the mic stand. One last thing I wanna do before I move on is I wanna align them perfectly so that everything is in the middle. So I'll show you how to do that. So the first thing you wanna do, first one is I wanna kinda adjust this mic to go down a little bit. So I'm just using the arrow tool in my keyboard and just going down like here. And then now I want everything to be aligned to the middle. So you're gonna grab everything. So there's a couple ways you could grab. You could hold on to the shape, click on the shape, hold down shift, grab the next one, hold down shift, grab the next one, hold down shift, and grab the next one. That's one way to do it. Other way is just to put your mouse cursor here and just drag and grab everything. So now we have everything. And if you come up here, there's something called Align. So if you go to the Align panel, you're going to see some options. It's very self-explanatory based on the picture. What we want to do is we want to do this. Horizontally, we want to align to the center. So you're just going to click on that. And now everything is aligned perfectly. Okay, so this is all I have for the first part of the video. Now again, the reason I split is because it's a very simple icon, but there's a lot of function that I introduced you to. We talked about how to create shapes, how to use Pathfinder, how do you align it, and also if you don't have Adobe CC, how do you go about making a rounded corners? It's a lot of information. So I'm gonna stop here for the part one, and then in the next video, I will quickly show you how you could draw these lines and make it perfectly reflect from left to right, and also how you could easily change colors as an icon. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.